we are going to the QA session. Here is a question. Do you think it is necessary to adapt the clinical evaluation methods for new medical devices according to their level of risks? Anyone want to comment, answer this question? Dr. Cheng, would you please answer this question?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again?
Do you think it is necessary to adapt the clinical evaluation methods for new medical devices according to their different levels of risk?
Yes, it is definitely, because medical device has such a variety in forms and in risk levels, to put it this way. Some are invasive, some are not, and it's a physical valuation that it requires this risk class classification in regulation, because otherwise it's an impossible task. Drugs is very simple. They are mostly chemicals, and then they can be easily subject to double-blind randomized study. This is not the situation in devices. So to expect the devices to be regulated like drugs is not realistic.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is how can we define the high-risk medical devices?
Well, these are all
medical devices
classified by the Global Harmonization Task Force at the IFMBE criteria. They're all in the guidance document. All these classification devices are defined. Invasive, for example, invasiveness, and also other criteria. You have to go back into the guidance document, and these are clearly defined.
Okay.
I may add that the medical device directives and regulations have a clear definition of high-risk medical devices. They are classified class 3, and this is according to the classification rules that are taking into account the invasiveness of the devices and the risk for the patient. So the high-risk medical devices are simply class 3 according to the medical device regulation in Europe. And it is similar for FDA.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
okay. Thank you.
Classification.
We have a question from Professor Carrier from Brazil, and he asked, is there any development regarding the comfort for patients in ventilators that stay more than 10 days on bed?
Shall I pick that one up? Yeah, I'm aware of a few things that I'm personally involved with. The first one would be dynamic mattresses. There are a lot of available dynamic mattresses on the market, and we're currently doing a study to evaluate the relative efficacy of these devices for critical care patients. So that would include COVID patients staying in ITU for 10 days or longer, but it would also include a whole range of other patients who have a long period of time of immobility. And there's a whole suite of devices available out there, from ripple devices, from anti-shear devices, from pressure alternating devices, from air fluidized devices. They all come with different claims from the manufacturers, and we're currently doing a study to try and it's a product evaluation study to try and see if there's any particular differences in which ones we're going to adopt locally in Nottingham. The second thing I'm aware of that we're very active in at the moment, it takes me back to the second example, I think, in my presentation, and that was we've developed a range of materials that can sense pressure and oxygenation and fluid flow, and we're putting them on tubes, CT tubes, which we're using in ventilated patients to look at the damage that the tubing does to the throat, to the airways, when it seals, to enable mechanical ventilation. So we're doing a study there about blood flow and how we can increase blood flow, which although the patient won't notice the comfort at the time, they sure as hell will when they come out of intensive care and the intubation is over. And then the third element that we're looking at is not really comfort per se, but we've defaulted around the world in treating COVID patients in ITU and elsewhere, but particularly in ITU, with rotating and proning patients. It just seems to have been in the established practice now, prone patients during in intensive care COVID patients. And yet there doesn't seem to be any evidence to support that in terms of documented literature. So we're looking at a study to see whether, I mean, we know intuitively the proning patient gets different parts of the lungs active again, but we're looking to see whether there's any evidence to support that. And so a small study has been started. Unfortunately, no, it's good news. We've got too few patients at the moment to complete that study, which is good. It means we haven't got that many COVID patients in our intensive care anymore. But it does mean we're not going to be able to complete that study for a little while yet.
Okay, because the limited time, we have the last two questions. The first, also a quick answer. The first one is, should a new medical device be evaluated on its own or integrated with the end user and its environment?
Oh, most definitely the second part of that. Medical devices, I think Michael said it, somebody said it today, medical devices, the efficacy of a medical device is very much dependent on how it is used and its application, where it's used. You can get different levels of efficacy for a device that's used in the home environment, exactly the same device that's used in a professional healthcare establishment. You can get different that if the staff aren't trained. If it's a complex device, training becomes more important, in fact, than some of the engineering features. So absolutely, a device should be evaluated in the context with which it's going to be used.
I fully agree as well, and this question also is very valid now that due to the COVID-19, a lot of regulations are questioned, and I think that regulations is now clear that are not fitting exactly worldwide requirements, but are more oriented to the countries that they develop them. So the context and the environment and the user is very critical for the safety and also the performance of the device. And this is the big difference we have in drugs and devices.
Okay, thank you. Tom, the last question is for you. You have a question for
Nicolas, you know, we know how hard it is to set up vigilance systems that work in our countries. What were some of the leadership principles that you had to use to do that would help all of us?
If you will give me, I will give just an example on
Right.
evidence-based decisions. When we apply evidence-based as leaders, we are avoiding imposing things. We are convincing. And this is a very critical issue. I think that by evidence-based decisions, we can choose the right track to tackle a problem. If I have 1 more minute, I could give you a recent example. In Greece, as you may know, we went extremely well up to now with COVID-19. Very limited cases, small number of human losses, healthcare system didn't reach even 50% of its capacity and had the time to be restructured and better organized. What is behind these very positive results that save thousands of lives? In fact, is that Greeks followed the instructions. How this was possible? Greeks are not by nature, very obeisant. I think that the way the measures have been presented was not, you should do this because I know better than everybody else. It was altogether, we must follow strict measures like careful cleaning hands, keeping distancing, stay at home, etc., because there is a strong evidence that these measures are effective. At the same time, in various questions, why not adopt this or that? The answers were based on evidence. Answers like, there is not enough evidence to do this, or there is evidence to do that. Everything said by the leader of the expert advisory group, Professor Sotiris Tsiodras, was evidence-based. And I could say that I don't know him, but I'm grateful to him, not only for the results of the approach on COVID-19 for Greece, but also for the excellent example of evidence-based decisions he gave with such a big success in Greece. So evidence-based decisions are the cornerstone of any leadership principle. Thank you very much, Tom, for giving me the opportunity to say that.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the answer. Now I will give the call to Fabiola to wrap up today's webinar. Fabiola, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. We want to thank the panelists for their valuable participation and for sharing their stories on quality and safety in healthcare. I want to thank Alan for partnering this session with me and to the Clinical Engineering Division for the opportunity to be part of this fantastic initiative. We remind you that next Friday, May 15th, we have the WHO CAD COVID-19 critical topic town halls that be focused on pulse oximetry global issues for COVID-19 care. You can register using the link provided in the chat section. Also, the next competency webinar will be on June 10th with the topic Partner with Clinicians, Support Clinical Caregivers Using Reliable Health Technology. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful and safe time. And remember, together we can make it better.
So this concludes today's webinar. See you next time. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Stay safe.